Are you spending hours on scales and arpeggios but your solos never sound better? I certainly did, but a masterclass from Barry Harris changed everything and made it easy to turn exercises into real jazz lines. So in this video, I'll show you exactly what Barry taught me and how you can use this exercise to finally play solos that feel and sound like jazz, not just mechanical scales. Barry often started his masterclass with this exercise, and it's not just about running scales, it is a practical way to learn the song and connect each chord to the right scale, all in one go. For this video, let's use the song How High the Moon as our example. The basic idea is very simple. As you play through the song, you run the scale that matches each chord, but with a slight twist. I keep the 2 chords, so the minor 7 chord, before the dominant in the progression. I know that Barry leaves those out. Let me quickly break down how this works, because then you can do it on pretty much any song. It's a fantastic way to actually hear the song structure, the chord changes, and the scale that fit each chord all at once. So here's how you do it. If a chord lasts 1 bar, like the G minor 7 and the C7, then you play the scale from the root to the 7th note of the scale. If a chord lasts 2 bars, like the G major 7 in the beginning of the song, then play root up to the 7th and then back down to the root again. This is already super useful. It gives you an overview of the song so that you can easily find your way around the scales and start improvising in one area of the neck. In Barry's masterclass, he'd start with this, then either build a solo by swapping out scales for real solo phrases, or use the exercises to try out a new lick or idea all the way through the song. But honestly, this is just scratching the surface of what you can do with it. Let me show you how much further you can take this. So you've learned the scales for the song, great first step, but here's where most players get stuck. They don't know how to turn those scales into real melodic jazz lines, and that's where arpeggios come in. They're a great ingredient for building licks that sound like jazz, not just exercises. Let's take the first 4 bars of How High the Moon and play the basic arpeggios. This is already a fantastic exercise, but let's level it up. Here's how you can supercharge it. Let's add a triplet rhythm to the arpeggio to give it some bebop energy. And then throw in a leading note, so a chromatic note just before that first arpeggio note. And finish off with a scale run with another chromatic note. And that gives you this. Hear how much more like jazz that sounds? Now try moving this lick around the song. All 3 versions you just heard are beautiful jazz lines that you can use right away. The foundation for this exercise is first take the phrase through the progression rubato and then figure out how you can make it fit the chord. That helps you understand the building blocks. Chromatic leading note, arpeggio, as a triplet, and then that descending scale run with a leading note. So moving this to the G minor 7 is now pretty easy. We have the leading note, then the arpeggio as a triplet, and then because it's G minor instead of G major, we can actually play the same scale run. And then we have that one. For the C7 leading note, the arpeggio as a triplet, and then the scale run with the leading note. This approach opens up a whole new world for your playing. Suddenly you're not just running scales, you're building your own vocabulary of strong melodic jazz lines. But there's even more that you can do with this. Let me show you. You probably heard this advice 1,000 times from teachers and online lessons.
Take this lick through all 12 keys.
Of course that is useful, but it's still just an exercise and not the fastest way to learn to play jazz. Instead, here's what's way more powerful. Take your lick through an actual song. When you do this, you're not just moving your fingers, you're connecting it directly to the music you want to play. You're turning it into a flexible phrase that works on lots of chords. And in the process, you also figure out how the lick works, not just practicing how to play it. And that's how you get better at creating your own licks that actually sound like jazz, instead of just playing the right notes over the chord. Let me show you exactly how this works. Here's a G major 7 lick. First, figure out what the line is really built from. I usually start by just finding the basic chord tones. It starts on the root, then moves down to a low 3rd, the B, and then back up to the 7th F sharp, and then you have the 5th as well, the D. Now, then you look at what connects them. There's a leading note into the low 3rd, so And notice how great this large interval skip sounds. And then of course, once we get back up to the 7th, we have a scale note between the 7th and the 5th. Now you understand the structure, and once you spot that, moving the lick to a new chord becomes quite easy. On G minor 7 you have G, then the B flat, the low 3rd, back up to the 7th F, and then the D. So you get... And you can do the same for the C7, starting on the C, then down to the 3rd with the leading note, 7th, and then down the scale. Next, take it through the song slowly. Don't worry about tempo. Actually, out of time is probably the best place to start. Just move it around the progression. Once that feels natural, start using it inside a solo. That's when it stops being an exercise and becomes real jazz vocabulary. This way of practicing, learning how to build and move strong lines through a song is exactly what I teach inside my Jazz Guitar Roadmap course. Instead of just working on isolated exercises, you're always learning how to put the new concepts to use on a song. And with clear strategies for rhythm, phrasing and chromatic notes, you learn how to play solos that actually sound like jazz. But this exercise doesn't just help you build licks, it can also develop a completely different kind of flexibility. Check this out. I'm sure your teacher or plenty of online lessons have told you to use the arpeggio from the 3rd of the chord. After all, that's what Charlie Parker and Wes Montgomery do all the time. But knowing the concept and being able to use it in your solos are two very different things. And this is where the approach that we've just talked about becomes incredibly useful. The reason the arpeggio from the 3rd is such a great concept is that you are mostly playing the basic chord tones. So for G major 7, the arpeggio is G, B, D and F sharp. Now the 3rd is B, and the diatonic arpeggio on B is a B minor 7, which gives you B, D, F sharp and A. So you're still playing 3 chord tones because the B, D and F sharp are in both chords, but now you're also adding an A on top, which is just a beautiful 9th, making your solos more colorful. You already saw how to practice arpeggios through a song at the start of the video. Now let's connect the regular arpeggio to the arpeggio from the 3rd. First, play the arpeggio from the root. Then you find the 3rd of this chord, so in this case that's the B, and play that arpeggio, in this case that's the B minor 7. And if you apply that to the entire song, then you get this. This helps you hear how they relate, and it also connects them right on the neck, so moving between them becomes natural, and the arpeggio from the 3rd is a lot easier to find. Now take the arpeggio from the 3rd through the song. Once that feels comfortable, start building short lines from it and move those lines through the progression, just like before. The arpeggio from the 3rd will be a part of your playing in no time. So maybe the problem isn't how much you practice, but what you're practicing. If you want to see what legends like Wes Montgomery actually spent practice time on, then watch this video next. I'll break down their strategies so that you can learn faster and stop wasting time on exercises that anyway don't improve your playing. Check it out. Learn jazz, make music.